Now the first thing you all want to do is you're going to want to make a new directory. So to make a new directory, you're going to say mkdir. Let's call this one train-the-robot, since it's our train the robot assessment. And you hit enter. It should make you a folder down here called train the robot. Let's cd into that folder. Cd train the robot. Then you're going to touch an index.html. Open up that index.html file, and we're going to start coding in it. So I'll leave these commands right up here so you can make sure to get them correct. But once you have an index.html open like this, you will be ready to go. Cool? Once you have your index.html ready to go, I'm going to actually collapse this little side thing. And I'm going to collapse this too, just enough that I don't really have to see it. It's really all you need. And in here, I'm going to make a few things. I'm going to make a head tag. And I'm going to make a body tag. That's going to hold all my code. In the head tag, I'm going to need a style tag to put all my styles. And inside the body tag, I'm going to put an H1 that said, this is a heading, or I don't even remember what it says, something along those lines. That is all I'm going to put just to make sure it works. So that when I preview this file, preview, ta-da, there it is. Cool? You just need the HTML, index.html, that's exactly right. So this is what it should look like when you preview it. It should just say this is a heading. And this is your entire index.html. There's nothing in there yet, correct? Now what we want to do is we want to be able to create a header or nav bar, whatever you want to call it, and then a main part of our page with 3 columns and then a footer at the bottom. So that means we're going to need 3 sections to our page. Now when you section off a page, what is the HTML element we learned how to use to section off a page? To divide the page. The div. How many divs do we need? 3 divs. 1 div. Copy paste. 2 div. 3 div. Lovely. Give each one a class. This top class is going to be header. This middle class is going to be, let's call this main. And this bottom class, we're going to call footer. So 3 sections to our page. The header section, the main section, which has our 3 columns, and the footer section. Now the really cool thing about Flexbox is that Flexbox makes it absolutely, fantastically, lovely easy, stupidly easy, to position things in a specific order. It's what Flexbox is really good at. If you want to stack 3 things on top of each other, Flexbox is great for that. If you want to stack 3 things to the left and right of each other, Flexbox is great at that. So all those Flexbox Froggy and Flexbox Tower Defense games you were playing, there's a reason we were playing it. We're playing it to learn how to station and position things on a page in a way that most appropriately gives us the layout we want. So we're going to need some code to make sure this works. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give my body some CSS code. And I'm going to say it should have a margin of 0, so there's no space around the body. Right now you see there's some space around this H1. If I save this and I refresh, ta-da, no space. That's how I want to start this off, with no space inside the body anywhere. And that's why I give it a margin of 0, because margin is space between one element and another. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give some header styles, some main styles, and some footer styles. Now these 3 styles are going to be used to position the things on my page. The problem is I want all of these to stack on top of each other. So I want the whole thing to display flex so I can stack them easily. To do that, I need to put all of them inside another div. Now this is something I see you guys messing up all the time. If you want to have something positioned, an element positioned inside another element, you have to put them in there like this, inside them, and then indent to show that they're nested inside the div. And we're going to give this one a class equals wrapper, because it's going to wrap the whole app. Now I'm going to pause for a second so you have a chance to copy this down. But right now, all I've done is I've put a bunch of divs and a header. And since my header should go inside the header section, the H1, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to put it inside the header, just like this. Now, when you put one HTML element inside another one, this is called nesting. And what I've seen is that we have a problem with nesting. It's something that we have a hard time doing again and again. Make sure when you nest something that the opening tag is here, and then whatever you want to nest inside it is inside it, and the closing tag is here. You could think of eggs inside a nest. You don't want an egg hanging out outside the nest. That doesn't make a lot of sense. What's the point of the nest? So when you nest elements, put them inside whatever thing you want them to be inside of. So this header divider is going to hold my heading. So I'm going to stop here for a second, let you guys copy this down. Cool? Now to position all three of these things, I want to make sure you can see where they are and the distinction between each level. So I'm going to give them a background color. I'm going to say the header should have a background of, I'm going to use RGB. RGB stands for red, green, blue. How much red? 40. How much green? 50. How much blue? 60. Just gives you like a dark color. And then the main, I'm going to say this part should be background of like slate gray, which is just a dark gray. And then the footer should have a background of just regular gray. Just two different ways to do colors. They're all just colors. I'm just telling them to have different backgrounds. The problem is, if I save this and I refresh the page, you'll notice that most of them don't appear. Only the top part appears, because there's no content to make the other sections appear. Now, this whole thing, I'm just telling each of these, to have a background color, but I also want to make sure their height and width are easy to see. So width is going to be 100% for each one, and I'm going to make the header have a height of 20%. I'm going to have the main have a width of 100% and a height of 70%. Oops, 70%. And I'm going to have the footer have a width of 100% and a height of, anyone want to guess? You straight, you don't want to guess that? One was 20%, one was 70%. There's only a certain percent left. No one wants to guess? 10%? Thank you. 10%. Because it adds up to 100%. Nice work, children. Now, if I refresh this now, let's see what it looks like. Okay, cool. See that? Sort of. The color's a little hard to see. But this part is light blue. This part is like a dark midnight. And this bottom part is like gray. Now, this header is black and it's hard to see, so I'm going to make it color white. So I'm going to come back in. Oh, wrong one. Come back in, and I'm going to say color white, just so it's a little easier to see. Cool. There we go. We're getting real close now. Now all I need are 3 columns. Where should the columns go? Inside which div, Jeremito? The main div. Exactly right, Jeremito. So what Jeremy has identified is that we're going to need to put 3 columns inside this main section. So Jeremy, how do I make 3 columns? What are the 3 HTML elements, Jeremiah, that we should use to divide the main section into 3 columns?
Is it one margin?
Well, we're going to need to use divs, just like we did before. 1 div, 2 div, 3 div, each for the columns we need. Now again, I'm nesting these divs inside the main div. Cool? So far we haven't done anything special. We just put a bunch of divs and made them have background colors. And we told them what height to have and what width to have. To get them to look like nice columns, one really easy way to do that is to use Flexbox. So inside the main class, I'm going to come to main, and I'm going to say display flex. Now what display flex does is something really simple. Let me show you. Now once they're displaying flex, we can give each of these a class. We'll give this one a class. What do we say the left column we're going to call it? Extra. Beautiful. What about the middle class? What about the middle column? Primary. Lovely. And the class on the right? Secondary. Fantastic. So we have 3 classes for 3 columns. We're telling the main section to display flex. And let's give each of these a background color so we can see the difference between them as well. Cool? So I'm going to come here right after main, and I'm going to say dot extra should have a background of, let's say, Dodger blue. Then I'm going to have dot primary have a background of, someone give me a color. Red. Cool. And dot secondary. One more color, please. Yellow it is. Ugh. Now, if I save this and I refresh, you might notice something. If I refresh this, we don't see the columns appear there. Notice that? Right now, those columns are taking up 0 amount of space because there's no content inside them. Even though they have a background color, there's nothing inside them, and we haven't told them how wide to be. So right now, they take up no amount of space. To make them take up the right amount of space, you give them a flex property. Because whatever is holding them, the main column, displays flex, we can do something like this. We can say flex 1 for the extra column. And let's see what happens now. If I refresh this, boom, the whole thing is Dodger blue. So when you give it a flex of 1, it takes up as much space as it can. And right now, there's nothing else taking up space, so it takes up the whole thing. Now, if I come to the primary section, which is the second column, and I also tell that to have a flex of 1, and I save it. This one's red. And if I come back and refresh the page, cool. Now I have 2 equal width columns. One on the left, one on the right. That's kind of sweet. Now, what do you think I have to do to make it 3 columns? Let's head back to the index. Right now I'm giving the extra column and the primary column a flex of 1. Extra column, primary column. What's the last thing I need to do? Same thing for the other one, which we called what, Jeremito? That's right, Jeremiah, flex 1 for the secondary column. And what do you think is going to happen? Boom! 3 equal width columns. But our middle column, our primary column, we want it to be slightly bigger than the other ones, huh? So instead of saying flex 1, what should we say? We could say flex 2. Let's see what flex 2 looks like. Flex 2. We refresh. And it'll be 2 times as big as the other ones. But that's a little too big. So let's knock it down a little notch. Let's say flex 1.5. Let's see how that looks. But bam. It's slightly bigger than the other 2. Oh yeah, it definitely is. It's about 1.5 times the size of the other 2. You can't tell? You'll see it a lot more on your small screen. It'll make a lot more sense. But at this point, we now have, and if I pop it into a big screen, it doesn't matter what size the page is. Those columns will always take up the same amount of width. Flex 1, 1.5, they always take up the whole width of the page, and they take the exact same amount of space up. Now, what if I didn't want columns, I wanted rows? Well, I could just, instead of saying flex, right here where it says display flex, I could say flex direction column. And if I save this and refresh, they'll go in rows like that. That doesn't look as nice, so I don't want to do that. But if you want to stack your elements like that, it's totally a good way to do it. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to say not flex direction column. I don't want that. And I'm going to refresh this. Ta-da! And that is easy as pie. I now have a website. And you know what? I'm going to make this header centered. So I'm going to go to the header part. And I'm going to say text align center. And make that look nice. Boom! Lovely. Now, what if I want this header to be in the middle, so it's not stacked up against the top? Well, you can do the same thing. You can display this flex, right? Press refresh. Cool. Now it's in the center there, and just align the item center. So instead of text align center, you can justify content center. Oops, excuse me. Refresh that, and bam. Now it looks fantastic. The rest of this work is for you to do. So I want to give you the head start on this to make this a little easier for y'all. This video is a little long, about 15 minutes, but you can fast forward to the parts that you need to remember if you forget any of it. Cool? Any questions? ¿Tienes preguntas? Nada? Perfecto. You have the rest of the period. Let me know if you